and welcome to You and the Police. My name is Wendy Lai. Tonight we're focusing on political party vigilantism. Over the years, the violence that characterizes political party vigilantism have increased. There's been a lot of call and concern as to how to deal with this matter, from politicians to ordinary Ghanaians to relevant stakeholders who have expressed their concern as to how this matter can and should be dealt with. But has it fallen on deaf ears? There are also concerns about how the police deals with such issues, that they are not prosecuting such crimes and dealing with such individuals who perpetrate these acts. How best can we deal with this matter? We will be speaking to a security analyst on this matter and also find out what can be done about this situation. It's now time for Crime Highlights. These are crime stories that you might have missed during the week. story of the week this evening, we're looking at political party vigilantism. How did this start? What are the effects and the negativism that comes with political party vigilantism? How best can we deal with this problem? Is it here to stay? And what is the way forward? We will be speaking to Adib Sani. He is the Executive Director for Center for Human Security and Peace Building, on the matter and the issue which is becoming a concern here in this country, political party vigilantism. Have we dealt with it as we should as a country? Is it here to stay? What are the relevant stakeholders doing about it? Has the state and also national security failed us?
Political vigilante groups keep springing up despite calls for them to be outlawed. Recently, Delta Force, a group affiliated to the ruling MPP, disrupted a meeting being held by the Member of Parliament for Old Tafo, Dr. Anthony Akoto-Osei. He has to be whisked away by his security detail, prompting fresh calls for the politically backed groups to be disbanded. The Executive Director of West Africa Center for Counter-Terrorism, Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar, said it is time to end the vigilantism before the worst happens.
To take, leading voices and citizens, just like ordinary citizens like you and I, all of us, to prevail on politicians and the law enforcement agencies, the judges, every citizen, every single stakeholder in this country, to ensure that we do what we have never done in terms of our attempt to disband vigilante groups in this country.
On his part, spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Arimeya Shaibu, noted terrorism and extremists in parts of the continent began in a similar way, describing the current situation in Ghana as danger in waiting.
The way that it has acted in our country, it spells out a certain kind of danger that spells a certain doom in terms of our politics in the future. You can find a band of political activists who can attack our judicial system. That is the place where we are all protected, our rights are protected.
The said video, which has since gone viral on social media, captures Ashanti Regional Youth Organizer of the opposition NDC, Broja Jemfi, urging members of the vigilante group, the Hawks, to take all steps to protect members of the NDC in the run-up to the 2020 elections.
MPP for police station.
Unlike the NPP vigilante groups that have disrupted court proceedings and the likes, we are focused on the election 2020.
We will heavily rely on you.
We have the backing of the party's general secretary.
Sorry, general secretary.
Weeks ago, Director of Elections of the NDC, Samuel Ofosu Ampofo, denied any knowledge of the Hawks group when reports went rife that it offered security services at the party's recent regional executive elections. The menace has been on the ascendancy since the governing MPP took office, with many of the groups linked to two major political parties, NPP and NDC. Some security experts have, for instance, predicted their activities could spell doom for the country if not controlled.
They have become a serious threat to our democracy. The IGP, he should call the political parties to a roundtable discussion to come out with a roadmap as to what they think is the way, in their own estimation, to eradicating these things, and then give a zero tolerance to any political party that engages in this activity.
A civil society group, Patriotic Front Movement of Ghana, few weeks ago petitioned government, the police administration, and the two major political parties to urgently deal with various vigilante groups or face them in court. With a surge in their activities and the massive support they enjoy from their paymasters, it will be a tall order for their dominance to be subdued by the security agencies.
Chairperson Josephine Nkrumah said the Commission will continue to condemn name and shame vigilantism and all acts of lawlessness.
This for us is a national crisis. the security agencies must hasten investigations into the latest incident and bring the deviants to book. Political party stalwarts must also call their members to order and remind them that no individual or group of persons can hold the country to ransom under the guise of political party vigilantism.
She said the Commission has come up with a strategy to engage various political parties in an attempt to help in disbanding all vigilante groups.
We would engage them firstly on individual party basis, find some consensus, and bring all the parties together to a table and put it out in the public domain where they would have to affirm their commitment to disbanding these groups and totally ensuring that this becomes something that we resolve now and not have to go back to this issue of political party vigilantism.
She highlighted the risk vigilante groups pose to the country.
Because of the risk it poses to the country's democratic stability, social security, investor confidence, and peaceful coexistence of all Ghanaians, amongst other factors.
Josephine Nkrumah is of the view indiscipline in the security services could be attributed to political intrusion.
When you recruit people who have not got the demeanor or the character for the security agency and to work with the discipline that is required in that service, you can only expect that once in the system, all they would do is exhibit who they truly are. And especially for someone who's not disciplined, who has the power of a weapon, it gets worse.
The NCC and other persons are calling for a ban on what some persons describe as vigilante activities. These activities that constitute a breach of the peace are illegal activities in themselves. They are an offense to the acts, the Criminal Offences Act and other acts in this country already. You don't actually need to ban illegal activity because they are illegal in themselves. Two things remain. The security agencies who are seized with the power to investigate these things, arrest the persons culpable. We all have to direct our attention and our focus on them, even as the President and the Interior Ministry keep repeating to them that they have to do what they are hired to do, which is to enforce the law. They have to do that. You have also heard the President speak and, may I say, admonish the judiciary that because the security agencies sometimes complain that when they arrest all sorts of persons and put them before the courts, sometimes the adjudication process is not firm or strong enough. So you heard the President at the swearing in of the new justices of the Supreme Court make the point that we need to be tough with sanctions, whether it's for galamsey or for what some may call vigilantism or other acts of that kind. The judiciary needs to put those firm sanctions in place. I think that what all of us, civil society, government actors, media should do is to keep repeating those points to those two agencies that are responsible, because the activities in themselves are illegal in the first place. If somebody came in here to disrupt this press briefing that we were having, that breach of the peace is an illegal activity. We don't have to ban him for doing that. He has committed an illegality.
Addressing the members of the National House of Chiefs at their general meeting, Togbe Afede condemned actions that have a tendency to destabilize peace and unity of the nation.
Serial calling is becoming a profession. More worrying are calls for the formation of vigilante groups. These do not augur well for peace, for unity, or for development.
Speaking on the creation of new regions, Togbe Afede entreated all to follow the roadmap for the creation of the new regions in the interest of peace and unity.
I want to appeal to all Ghanaians, those who are for and those who are against creation of new regions, politicians of the ruling party as well as those outside the ruling party, and indeed, again, all Ghanaians, to uphold the truth for the sake of our country.
He tasked Ghanaians to join hands to fight against issues that may lead to disunity and threaten peace.
So like I mentioned early on, this week we're focusing on political party vigilantism. Seems this issue would just not go away. It's becoming a growing phenomenon that needs to be dealt with. And we've had a number of stakeholders talk about it. But what really are we doing about it as a country? This evening, I will be speaking to Adib Sani. He is the Executive Director for the Center for Human Security and Peace Building. Good evening, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good evening, Wendy.
Now, you would agree that we've spoken about the issue of political party vigilantism over and over again, and it will just not go away. Do we understand really the effects vigilantism has on us as a country? How does this affect us?
It has the possibility of gradually sliding a country into a banana status. Because a lot of lessons can be learned from other jurisdictions. From the 2007 election in Kenya, the rural vigilante groups such as the Mungiki, the Sambwat Land Defense Force, the Luo Youth, the Kalenjin group, etc., played in that election that resulted in the deaths of well over 1,000 people. That even prompted then former President George Bush of the U.S. sending his Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, who arrived in Nairobi and gave her "it will not be business as usual" speech. Indeed, they played such a despicable role in a manner that it attracted so much international attention, with then President Kufuor calling on the former UN Secretary General, the late Kofi Annan, going there to play a role in reconciling the differences of the Orange Democratic Movement and the People's National Union that caused all of these. We can also learn lessons from Ivory Coast between 2010 and 2011 during their election, the role that vigilante groups played, especially the Young Patriots led by Charles Blegude, also known as the Young Patriots. And there are so many other examples. I mean, that includes, so the problem is, if care is not taken, sometimes when we say this, people feel we are being alarmist or we are being overly sentimental. But a lot of lessons, I said, can be learned. If care is not taken, in the next few years, we might not be talking about Delta Force. We might be talking about Delta Rebels, because there's a possibility of these groups metamorphosing into militia groups, especially with the massive proliferation of small arms and light weapons coming from other parts of the continent, from North Africa down through the Sahara and down to Sub-Saharan Africa, with the porous nature of our borders. When these guns fall into the hands of these individuals, it has the potential of emboldening them more. Already they are emboldened, because you have some of these groups thinking they are bigger than the states. Their powers can be compared with that of the police. They can even besiege a court premise and free their comrades and all that. So for me, it is very dangerous. Secondly, it has the potential of becoming widespread, and that has a direct implication on the national security of the state. And you know, when there are issues with national security of the state, it affects the provision of basic amenities to the people, including food, including water, including the protection of the environment, etc. So for me, what is happening is very dangerous, and it's high time we put the structures in place to stop it before it becomes something that we might find very difficult to manage.
You speak about the state. Let me put them as two entities. Now, have these entities failed us as a country when it comes to dealing with political party vigilantism?
Woefully. Woefully. And it is very disheartening, because these bosses of the national security apparatus, etc., are appointed by the political elites. And these vigilante guys provide those political elites, especially when they are in opposition, security. They help them organize political rallies and other events, and the same politicians promise the guys milk and honey. However, when they come to power and they are not able to fulfill the construction of bridges where there are no rivers, and on the other hand, these guys who are mostly unemployed and in some cases uneducated are not able to manage their expectations, it results into the violent activities we see them engaging themselves in. And the hands of the politicians is tied behind their back because they are boys. Because I remember clearly before the 2016 election, we had the police administration sitting with the politicians and other civil society organizations and other opinion leaders. And they appended their signature to a Magna Carta sort of document, reaffirming their commitment to disbanding the groups within their fold. But the problem is, Wendy, the lack of political goodwill, the lack of political commitment towards dealing with the menace. Because you see the politicians saying all sorts of things, but you don't actually have them showing that level of commitment towards dealing with the spirit of vigilantism in the country. Because I understand that those who attacked the MP in Kumasi, they were his bodyguards during the electioneering, and he has not visited them. He's only come there on 3 occasions. They've made several attempts to get to sit with him. He doesn't, he always rejects it. They've even called him severally, but he doesn't answer. So the problem, most of the problem actually has to do with the political elite. And I think it's high time they go beyond the rhetoric and show that level of commitment towards dealing with the scourge.
Can we ever disband political party vigilantism here in our country? Can we ever do it? We've paid a lot of lip service. There's been a lot of rhetoric from government, from stakeholders, from NGOs, from organizations like yours, and it's like it's falling on deaf ears. Can we ever deal with it?
We can, by first of all showing the right level of commitment, like I indicated, by ensuring that the regulations work, and most importantly also, by building institutional capacity to deal with the scourge.
I'm asking because sometimes we even have some of them arrested and eventually they're released. And yet these institutions are there. It's not like these institutions don't work. These institutions work. But when they are arrested, they are left to go.
You are right. At different levels, I've spoken with high-ranked members of the police service officers who tell me that, look, anytime we arrest these guys, the first persons to call us to release them, pleading to us to release them, are the politicians. And that is the problem. Because there's a Police Service Act, 1970, Act 350. Section 1 is quite clear about the responsibility of the police in prevention of crime, to detect crime, to arrest criminals, basically to ensure law and order in the country. So if you kowtow to the demands or the whims and caprices of these politicians, that day you cease to be a professional. You see, the problem is we've lost a sense of principle, because in an attempt for a district or regional or metropolitan commander to retain his seat, he might be forced to take the orders of these politicians. But I think it's time we confront these politicians also and let them know that, look, are you aware that interfering in the investigation process is a crime and you could be arrested? We should imbibe into us that sense of patriotism, that sense of principle, those values that has characterized our democracy over these years, and not resort to the politicization of these unbridled broad daylight criminality perpetrated by these individuals.
I have been speaking to Adib Sani Hicks, Executive Director for the Center for Human Security and Peace Building, and we were looking at the issue of political party vigilantism and how this matter can be dealt with. You're still watching You and the Police. We have more shortly. Now time for security tips on You and the Police. I'm sure you will learn a thing or two. That'll be all for this evening, but quickly let's do a recap of what we brought to you tonight. We looked at political party vigilantism, its effects on our country, and how best we can deal with it. We also spoke to Adib Sani, who is the Executive Director for Center for Human Security and Peace Building. He gave us his take on what we can do and what we are not doing as a country to deal with the canker, which is political party vigilantism. We brought you some crime highlights that you would have missed during the week, as well as some security tips. That'll be all for tonight. My name is Wendy Lai. Don't miss our next episode, which is same time next week Friday. Thanks for watching.